right, guys. It's Daine McDonald here, back for the Happy, Healthy Millionaire podcast. And I've got with me today a very special friend and guest. His name is Mat Steinwede. He is, outside of being a great mate of mine, someone that I really kind of look up to as an inspiration. This is a guy that's gone from being homeless and living on the streets of King's Cross to being one of the most successful real estate agents in the country. And then I guess outside of that, like myself, he's a nutcase with about 6 kids. He's very much into his mindset, his training, and we're very philosophically aligned on lots of different things. He's someone that I follow on social media, so I want to introduce him to you guys today to really help you with your family, your fitness, your finance. So Matt, how are you today, mate?
Good day, yourself?
Mate, I'm fantastic as always. Even when I'm not feeling as fantastic, I just tell myself that anyway, right? Yeah, we were both running a bit late today because we're typical kind of go-getters trying to fit 10,000 things in our days, right?
Yeah, exactly. I was like watching the clock in the last meeting. I'm like, I got to get out of this meeting.
Yeah, exactly. Well, look, obviously I know a bit about you and obviously your background, and I kind of touched base on that on the intro. But I guess for anyone that doesn't know who you are right now, for anyone that's like, who's this Matt guy? I'm going to go check out his Instagram profile. Give us a bit of background on who Matt is, where he's been, where he is now, and where he's going.
Without labouring over it too much, so I grew up at Maroubra. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Bra Boys.
I have, yeah. Weren't they behind those what was it, the riots in Cronulla back in the early 2000s?
So that's who I grew up with, and then I left the beach right before the Bra Boy thing. It used to be called a thing called like Mars Hell Team, and then they were the original Maroubra boys, and I grew up with them from quite young, and then left the beach when I was like 17, and I went partying in the city and never came back. And then started taking speed when I was about 15 years old.
Oh wow! Okay.
Parents' supervision wasn't really great at Maroubra.
Yeah.
But then when I went into the city, I went to this a girl from Maroubra, Tanya. She goes, "Come in, Oxford Street's the best." And I'd never taken ecstasy before. She goes, "Come in, we'll take some ecstasy." And I went in, and we took an ecstasy. It was the best night of my life. We're laying in the middle of Oxford Street, looking up at in all this traffic, looking up at the stars. I'm like, I feel amazing. Anyway, I thought, I'm going to do this. This is what I'm going to do. I'm not surfing anymore. And I gave that up. And then I started training in City Gym. I don't know if you know City Gym, but it was the only 24-hour gym.
I know well. I know Billy, the GM and the ownership group in there. I always go in there and have a workout whenever I'm in the city.
Yeah, right. Well, there's a lot of history there. So I started training there, and then there was this guy called Stephen who I met, this sort of bigger gay guy, and it was a real gay gym back then, like when Billy, the original owner, had it. It was like a real gay scene, but the whole Oxford Street was. So I said to Steve, how do those guys get so big? And I was like this skinny little surfer from Maroubra. When I say skinny, I was tall. But yeah, that's right. And he goes, they take steroids. And I was like, what's steroids? And he's like, I'll get you some. So I gave him $400. He got me some steroids, and off I went. And when I was training in there, I could see that the biggest guys and the scariest guys, not just in the gym, but in the whole scene, it was like a currency. It was like, I said, I want to become one of those people. And so I just got more connected, and I ended up bouncing on Oxford Street, and I got bigger and bigger. I ended up being just under 130 kilos, young guy, reasonable looking, really started getting really connected. Then I got deeper and deeper and deeper. But the party scene, mate, I just partied hard, trained hard, literally started doing all these things that you shouldn't be doing, and involved with all these things you shouldn't be getting involved in. And then I just got all of a sudden meaner and a bit more animalistic.
But coming back, but coming back to the point that you mentioned about like that animalistic and that how you got as a person in that environment, I think it's that whole thing of like attracts like. And at that point in your life, obviously, it sounds like you're around a lot of those people that were, I guess, vibrating on a certain kind of level, right? That were really kind of, down there, not necessarily doing the best things, not with the best mindset either.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and like, I sort of had a trade then, but I sort of left that and I just got into drug dealing and, then I got into the people, really involved with the people that were, higher and higher up in the drug dealing. Then I ended up being a minder for prostitutes and then ended up working on Canterbury Road as a minder and
wow,
all sorts of stuff. Like I was just surviving basically. I just partied the whole time. But I turned into a fierce drug addict. Like I'm talking, I would be injecting, I don't know, it'd be nothing for me to inject an ounce of speed a day. Like I would just be, I was a bit of a loose cannon. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, just fast forward, then I got very connected with all the, the bikies and all that sort of stuff. And then one night I got into a huge fight in the middle of the cross. And I was very well known, like around the cross, and knew a lot of people. But there was about a group of about, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 guys. And then I was walking one of the head of the bikie gang's girl up the road, and they said something to her, and then I was like, "What do you say?" And I was like, I was not the person really, like I was not a rational person, and anyway, I just got into a huge fight with these guys, and one of them got very badly hurt, like his whole face got smashed in actually, and then I didn't go to, like, I got arrested and didn't go to court and all this sort of stuff. But then later, time went on, I just sort of doing my thing. I was under surveillance for a long time as well, and then this is sort of bits of it.
So you were really living in a state of fear, by the sounds of it, like whether consciously or subconsciously,
I would just do anything to survive, anything to do anything I just decided to do, I would just go and do. So, but then one day some people came to me that I did a lot of work for, and they said, "Look, we're opening another brothel. We want to send you to Terrigal." And I'm like, "Terrigal? Where's Terrigal?" "We want to send you to Terrigal to go recruit some girls. So we want you to go to a nightclub just across the road here. Actually, it's uncanny. I've got an office across the road from it.
Wow.
And it used to be called Key Largo back then, or Peppers or something. And so I went there and to recruit some girls and then entice them to come work in the brothel that they're opening. And I met this girl that night. She was 18th birthday. Her name was Karina. I met another big guy who makes me look small, and I went up to meet with the bikies up here because I was connected all around. So so I went there, and this girl called Karina walks up, and I'm like, whoa! And she knew the guy I was with, the big guy I sort of met through the bikies, and I was like, who the hell is that? And so I said to her, hung out with her a bit. I said, look, can I have your number? And because I really liked her, and she went to write a number down. She didn't tell me then, but she told me like weeks later. She went to write a number down. The bouncer grabs her and said, "You're not going to give that guy your number, are you?" And she's like, "Yeah." I was just, asked me to give it. He goes, "Please don't. Please do not give that guy your number." I'd never been to this place before. Never been up here before. And he said, "Don't say, I'm just warning you, don't give him your number. Please don't say I'm saying anything, because he's the sort of guy that makes people disappear." And I'm like, and she's like, fortunately, talk about sliding door moments. She gave me her number. Didn't listen. I went back to Sydney. I lost everything. I was living in this abandoned workshop. Like I was climbing in the window, sleeping there. I was in a lot of problems, heaps of problems. And then I rang Dino. This is like 6 months later. I rang Dino, the big guy, and I said, "Mate, can you come pick me up? I'm going to be dead or in jail any day. I can feel it." I had a couple of contracts taken out of my life, all sorts of stuff. He drove down, picked me up. I was just wearing the clothes I was wearing. He put me out the back of his parents' house in this little room. I was there for 9 months.
Wow.
And then he, and I was in a bit of a psychosis. Like my drug habit was massive. I'm talking massive. And I was in a bit of a psychosis. Lots of different things happened then. And I rang an ex-girlfriend and I said, Lisa, I'm in a bit of trouble. She's like, you are in that much trouble. You've left the biggest mess down here. Because what I was in, you can't just leave. Like it was like a lot of stuff. Anyway, I said, "What do you reckon I should do?" And she goes,
you can't just resign.
No. She goes, "Why don't you get into real estate?" And I'm like, "Real estate? What the hell is real estate?" And she goes, "I reckon you'd be perfect." Now, I reckon she thought all real estate agents were dodgy or criminals, and I'd be perfect.
Yeah.
And so I got the yellow pages. I rang everyone. No one would give me a job, and this lady gave me a job finally in a home office at Killarney Vale.
Okay.
I had no car. Dino bought me 2 pairs of pants and shoes, and the lady said, all I want you to do is go and knock on doors every day. So I used to walk from street to street, suburb to suburb, every day, all day, non-stop, the whole lot. Just ask people if they want to sell their house. 1 year later, I got the bus to work one day. I was renting a room off this elderly lady, and I was engaged to Karina by this point.
Oh wow, yep.
And I get home on the bus, and I walk into Tina's house. The phone rings, the home phone. I didn't know if I was mobiles then, but I didn't have one. And Ray goes, "Hey Matt, it's Ray." And I'm like, "Ray who?" And understand, I'm sort of in hiding. Like, you know, I've got a lot of stuff in Sydney that was not sorted out. I said, "Who? Ray who?" He goes, "From the fish and chip shop." Ray was an ex-heroin dealer from the Cross who's almost in hiding up here, who owned the fish and chip shop up here on methadone. And he goes, "You've just been on Australia's Most Wanted. I'm just letting you know." And Karina's dad turns up 2 minutes later at the front door. His whole family were watching Australia's Most Wanted on the thing, and I was on there, so I had to go hand myself back in. And then I went to court, and the judge at the end, Karina's mum, come to court, and the old lady who I rented a room off, and the judge said this, and another sliding doors moment in my life. She goes, "I don't know, Matt. Today you should be going to jail for quite a few years. I had 14 warrants out for my arrest, grievous bodily harm, malicious wounding, all these sorts of things." And she goes, "I just see some good in you." She goes, "I'm going to give you a second chance." And she goes, "You come back again, you'll be going away for most of your life." But I had to do community service for about 1.5 or 2 years or something. And then it took me 8 years to pay back all the fines that she gave me. But I walked out of that courtroom and I rang Dino, the big guy, still my best friend today.
Yep.
And I said, "Dino, I'm going to make you a promise. I'm going to become Australia's #1 agent." And I've never broken that promise. So that's the snapshot.
Yeah, I mean, look, and I'm sure there's more to it, but even that snapshot, I mean, I think it's, you know, credit to you, mate. Like, it's an inspirational story to kind of go from that background and I guess that type of environment that people see in the movies, right? And that you definitely wouldn't want your own children experiencing. You know,
no.
You know, not in a minute. But talk to me then. Obviously, you know, you came to the Central Coast, which for you guys that are kind of not from Australia or New South Wales is about an hour north of Sydney. You started getting into real estate, and then obviously you started selling and have your roots here. You started to have kids and stuff like that. Like, what are some of the biggest, I guess, you know, what are probably the top 2 lessons that you've learned from, I guess, your background and being able to translate as a parent? Because I think, you know, for a lot of the people that are listening right now, myself included, you know, we've got kids or looking at having kids, and then you hear that story and you're like, fuck, it almost makes you not want to have kids, right? You know, because you're like, imagine if that was my child that was going through that, how would you handle that as a parent? So how have you used that experience, which, you know, a lot of people would say was maybe negative, you know, at first glance? How have you turned that into a positive as a father?
You know what, mate? I've got a daughter. So I've been divorced twice. I've been married 3 times.
Yep.
Hopefully I'm going to work this out.
Yeah.
It's taken me a while. But probably I wasn't ready to have kids. They just, you know, I wasn't ready at all when I was younger. And Karina's family were Mormon, so she fell pregnant the first time we had sex. And
oh, wow.
We went, and the dad said, "Oh, I think you should get married." I'm like, "All right then." I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah.
But I've got a daughter, my second, so I've got 6 kids, 4 older ones. My second daughter, she's been in and out of rehab for 5 years. And she's got a lot of problems, a lot. And her mum doesn't have a great relationship with her. I was not emotionally connected younger. I understand emotional connection now, but when I was younger, I was just trying to get ahead and turn my life around. And I had enough problems myself trying to just even understand me.
Yep.
But
and I've said that quite often actually to people as well, like, you know, sometimes you've got to just put the work in yourself first and foremost before you can actually give that out to others around you.
I think, Dane, what you said just then is, sorry to jump in, but I don't want to forget that is exactly right. I think your example as a parent is the thing that they will actually tune into. And like, you can't go and like, I don't know, be this emotionally all over the place parent and expect them to be like
stable
together and whatever, and say they're gonna feel your example. Is it where I'm at in life now? I'm 49 years old. I've been through the ringer. My kids have had, some of them are really good and some of them have had a lot of problems, and one of them has turned himself right around, the oldest one, and he's phenomenal.
Yep.
But it's taken a lot of work. But I reckon what they tune into the most is your energy, your stable energy. And you can talk to them, which I have done many times, like till you're blue in the face. They almost can't hear it because they've got their own internal guidance system.
Yeah.
But what they can do is they can feel who you are. And when you're authentic, there's something magnetic about it.
Oh, definitely.
There's something, and I think my daughter, she's come around and she's trying and she's just fallen off again, but I've got to stay completely steady, and it's almost like a magnet. She'll come back, and I know I'll get it right with her. But, I've tried to work this parenting thing out for ages, and I don't have it mastered. But I think what they really look at is who I am. I really do. I think they look at who I am, where am I going, and am I real? Am I authentic? I'm not drinking at night, myself drunk. We all had alcoholic dads and this and that.
Yeah.
But, I'm not an alco. I don't swear. I stay steady. I provide a good place, a bit like you, mate. I watch you, and it's the same thing. And I reckon that is what they remember, and it's what they use as their yardstick.
Yeah. Well, the reality is, if you're not authentic, if you're not, living out your authenticity, that's going to come out in the way that you interact. That's going to come out in the way that you hold yourself when you're sitting down with them having a discussion. It's going to come out when you react to a situation that happens at home rather than respond to it. So I definitely 100% hear you on the energy and the frequency of things. So talk to me a little bit about that. I think for anyone that watches your socials, you talk about this a lot, energy, frequency. For someone that is kind of new, because even for myself and from my standpoint, a few years ago, I was as closed off as a titanium door. I was not tuned in to myself or anyone else energetically. I was just following that formal education system that we were taught at school or shown from our parents and our grandparents, which is, in many respects, increasing the amount of trauma that we carry on generation to generation. So, for someone who's not in tune with this stuff, give us your kind of take on it.
Yeah, so my whole goal now is frequency. So my life goal is frequency. The reality just matches your frequency, plain and simple. Yep. You want a house that you live in, if that rings someone's bells, you'll get it if you're at the right frequency. And I don't know if people sing. Which
I bought from Matt, by the way, guys.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. but the thing that I've learned, Dane, is it takes a long time to understand, to feel your frequency, increase your frequency, hold your frequency, and make it a part of you. So my thing is, people call it enlightenment. You can call it whatever you want, but it's frequency increase. That's where my entire focus is. Money reflects it, relationships reflect it, circumstances reflect it. You can create anything you want if you understand frequency management.
What do you?
So let's talk about that for a second. Let's talk about that for 1 second. I will not drink. I'm not saying everyone should be like this, but what I understand with drinking is, you drink. I don't care if it's 1 drink or 7 drinks. For me, it changes my frequency. It might make it better for a minute, but you go backwards after that. I'm not prepared for the 24 hours of backwards, 48 hours backwards. Drugs, no-go zone. 2 weeks of backwards. You can feel it. I don't swear because I think swearing is a low vibrational frequency. That's what I think. I'm not saying you, Daine, or anybody else. Yeah. I don't need to say F this, that. I'll think of another word. Have you read the book Power versus Force by Dr. David Hawkins?
No, I haven't.
No? He goes, you can come in, George. He goes, it talks about muscle resistance and enlightenment. And he actually measures words, he measures things, he measures drugs, he measures everything, and talks about truth starts as a scale of 0 to 900, 1,000, say, right?
Yep.
Buddha, Jesus Christ, Muhammad, they're all at 1,000.
Yep.
Truth starts at 200.
Yep.
Porn is, say, 86.
Yep.
And it's a very interesting book. And he basically
I can hear what it's saying, and even actually what you said about the swearing. I never thought about it in that context, right?
Yeah.
In the way that you put it. But I think even the very fact that you have that thought process around it and you approach it like that, that through itself for you is raising the energy and raising your intent and what you're actually putting out there and manifesting in itself because you believe it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I do. I believe it. That's true. And he talks about drugs, and he says when you take cocaine, you go to 600. 600. That's bliss. That's where bliss starts.
Yep.
And he's got this whole scale, bliss, but the down would be like 30.
Exactly.
Now,
yeah.
Everything I do now is around. Even when I deal with someone, I'll rather say to someone, whatever is in here, I'll say to them. Like I was just in a meeting before I came here. The lady got so offside with me because I didn't agree with her. I think she was actually giving the guy the wrong advice. There was a developer, and I said to her, put aside what you think. What do you think is the best for the development? Not just because you've got this easy sale over here. She was getting so worked up. And I said, look, you might think I'm not great of me right now, but I've got to say what's in here. Because I think what's in here always leads you right, every time.
Oh, definitely. I agree.
Someone says, do I look good? I'll say, no, you don't. Yeah, I'll say, no, you don't. Like, someone says, do I look good? I'm like, no, you don't. I don't like that dress because it does this. And people say, oh, you can't say that. I say, well, they asked me, and I'm only saying what I think, but I think a better option would be this.
Well, what you're doing there
people think I'm really blunt.
No, what you're doing there, and I agree with it too, is you're not enabling. And I think people enable a lot more than they need to. So like on that, and that, I mean, I guess even what you just said then, because I was going to tie in and say, what you're talking about in regards to frequency and raising your vibration, it's all well and good. But for someone that, for example, right now has not trained up their mind to create the habits and behaviors to do what you're doing just yet, what are some tools that you might give out to those listeners out there that are maybe struggling with sticking with anything, struggling with basically changing their mindset when they wake up in the morning as to, right now at this time of the year, one of the things that I really dislike hearing is, oh, I can't wait for next year. I can't wait. Oh, I can't wait for next year.
What about today? You just wake up a little bit.
It's all right. One of the things I really dislike seeing is I can't wait for next year. It's like, why? What's wrong with right now?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So what would be some of the habits or tools?
I was talking to my son this morning, my oldest son, and he's like, Dad, so he went out and took drugs on the weekend and he feels terrible.
Yep.
But he's got to a point now where his body's great, he looks great, he feels great, he's got a new car, he's got a good job, he's 1,000,000 miles ahead of where he was before. So he tried to commit suicide 2 years ago.
Wow.
And we've got a great relationship now. He was in hospital, wrist slit, blah, blah, blah. The two oldest kids have a lot of damage from things that were managed a long time ago. And he's like, the other day, he's like, Dad, my life is so good, blah, blah, blah. But he went out and took drugs on the weekend. And I said to Jacko, he goes, Dad, he said that, next year I'm going to do this. And I said, well, why next year? Like, what is the thing with next year? He goes, I really want to get my car paid off and this, and I want to go here. I said, what about this, Jacko? Next year, why don't we just he's got a brand new Nissan one of those 20-year-old boy cars, what are they? The ute things, the double cab ute things. I said, just next year, why don't we set a target of just paying your car off? That's it. You know, like one goal. And he said, oh yeah, and we're talking about it. I said, don't worry about the rest. You got a good job. You got to he's training every day, so he's got that part right. I said, just keep it really simple. And he's like, oh yeah, I think it is. He goes, Dad, you really keep things simple, don't you? I said, it's the only way to be, because as soon as you have a bit more, you focus on nothing.
KISS principle.
So for me,
it's KISS principle. So I say it in business too. People overcomplicate things.
They do. For myself, I know what I've got to do today. I've got to make a certain amount of prospecting calls. I've got to do a few appointments. I know that KPIs I need to get out of today. I've got to go to the gym once, 31 minutes is the thing that I do. I just allocate some time. Got to see my kids, and I've got to eat well. That's it. Nothing else. If I do that,
sounds very much like my day.
Yeah. You know, and Jordan, who is next to me there, Jordan.
I know.
So we work as a team. He follows the same thing. Jordan has 3 properties. He's 26 years old. He's earning a ton of money. He's working super hard. He follows the same things, not my things, just very simple, step by step by step. So if you're 20 kilos overweight, what's the first thing you need to do? You got to want to do it for a start. You got to want to make some change, not for anybody else, for you. And then you got to cut out this stuff, Krispy Kremes.
Yep.
You're going to be prepared, and be serious with yourself. I think we let ourselves off so easy. Little thing, oh, you should be right. No, it won't be right. Just don't eat rubbish. Like literally, don't eat rubbish. And then you got to get you off your bum to the gym, and go to the gym every morning. I don't care if you're a morning person. I saw the dumbest story on my phone on my newsfeed this morning. How to become a morning person. Get out of bed. That's how you become a morning person. But you got to go to the gym, do something. You don't have to set the world on fire. Do something. And then in the Arvo, you're going to be challenged with things like this. I've had a full day. Good on you. So has everybody else. I've had a full day. I reckon I've got 45 minutes to spare before dinner. You've got a choice right in that moment. Do I watch Netflix? Or do I see you, Daine, walking along the road with kids? Pram, this, that. Or do I put the kids in a pram, or do your partner, or grab my partner, go out with them, go for a walk, go back to the gym? It's that extra little moment that you squeeze a bit extra out of it. I reckon that's where the magic happens.
I agree.
The other stuff is the foundation. Yeah. The other stuff is the foundation. It's those moments that add up throughout a year that you will be on turbocharge. It's like if you're in sales like me, and you got to make 20 calls a day. Do the extra 2, 3, or 4 or 5 when you don't have to. We sort of stop for what reason? You know, next time you're in the gym, I've got to do 4 sets of 10. That's great. Do 4 sets of 13. Don't worry about the number. Do it till you literally can't move one bit anymore, and that's what counts.
Well, even just the example you said then, the extra 5 calls a day, you know, that's an extra 140 a month, or about, you know, 1,500 per year. Even if you convert 2% of that, you're increasing your revenue up significantly, right? The amount of take home that you've got at the end of the day.
It is.
I want to touch base on 2 things that you just said, in particular about working out. So obviously, for anyone that follows you, you've got a kind of method or a system called the 31 minute workout. Talk to us a little bit about that. Why is it 31 minutes? And kind of where did that come from?
Yeah, okay, cool. I worked, all I did was work for 20 years, literally non-stop. And I refused to let Jordan do the same thing. Real estate, very consuming. I was doing well, lots of volume, non-stop. I went to the doctors one day. He said, I don't know how you're still standing up. You got no testosterone in you and your cortisol's through the roof. He said, I don't know how you're still standing up. And I'm like, wow, I didn't think I felt that good. So I was like, I need to change this. I saw my body change. It got to like 42 or something, and I was like, I need to change this stuff. I'd always had a reasonably good body. I was like, I need to eat better, I need to do this, blah, 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 and I need to make time. Everyone says they don't have enough time. That's bullcrap. You want to do something, and it's amazing how you ring an old person. You go, do you want to see me on Wednesday? And they go, hang on a minute. 3 o'clock Wednesday, I've got the doctors. They've got time management down pat.
Yeah.
They're non-negotiable. You can't get to see them.
Yeah.
It's because they're focused on it. So you said on one of your posts recently, health is wealth. It's true. It's health is wealth. You're not healthy. All you want to be is healthy. You got nothing else. You got not the energy to give to other
100%.
people. So I'm like, I've got to make a commitment once a day. I've got to go work out, do something healthy, and that's what I did. And I got on the treadmill and I was doing that, and I was like, I don't like treadmill, I don't like cardio, but I was like, I'll start there. And I got to 30 minutes, and I'd walk, run, and I thought, imagine I did 1 minute. It's actually from David Goggins. I was like, am I pushing myself hard enough? I was like, even though I hate cardio, I was sweating like a pig, I felt terrible, like as in I was just bugging. I was like, I can do 1 more minute, like one more. And it's that one more that counts. It's that one more, 100%. Like you said then, Dane. One more over 10 years adds up. And it really doesn't take that much more effort.
You know, I really like that. I hadn't actually asked you that question before around the 1 minute, but it makes total sense, you know, like that extra 1 minute, and even just that philosophy to any aspect of your life, like that extra 1 minute that you spend being present with your children, or that extra 1 minute you spend in bed cuddling your wife in the morning or your husband. It all adds up and pays dividends back, you know, short and long term. I want to loop back on something actually that you said before, and this in particular for the fathers out there and men in particular. Obviously, you mentioned, and I didn't know this, that your eldest son, you know, nearly committed suicide 2 years ago, or did commit suicide, or tried to. How did you respond to that differently at this stage in your life compared to 20 years ago? Like, how were you there for him emotionally? Because I think that's one of the biggest issues for men, is being very, you know, pretty much authentic and transparent with how they're feeling. Like, you know, I can't imagine how hard that must have been. But, you know, again, for listeners out there that might have kids or even themselves going through some mental health, or as I like to call it, mental fitness issues, how were you there? How did you show up as a parent?
It's very difficult. I think, so my sister killed herself when she was 27. Like, she just couldn't cope. We had a very challenging young life. But I reckon the worst thing was the ricochet effect it had across all the kids. Or not the two youngest ones, but the other ones. Like, it really, the ricochet effect, it was like trying to stop a radio wave. You almost can't. It was like, you know, one day I just was driving along and we went to the hospital to visit Jackson, and Logan on the way back just pulled his jumper over his head and he just wouldn't take it off. He was about 12 at the time, or 13, and he put his head like this. He just wouldn't come out, and he just started sobbing so deeply, you know, that sobbing, and I'm like, what's wrong? He just wouldn't talk. He just could not process it.
Shell shocked.
Yeah, so I don't know, to answer your question, I don't know exactly what I did. I think it didn't fix itself. When I say fix itself, it didn't repair very quickly. I don't have an answer to that. I think I just remained doing what I was doing, available there. Jackson didn't.
Well, just to quickly make a comment there, though, being available. Most parents, not most, but a lot of parents, and in particular a lot of men, are not available.
Yeah,
they're not available emotionally. They're available there in the house, and I've been guilty of that. Like, and I've seen it even with my own kids, my youngest kids that I had at a different stage in my life compared to how I parent now. It's night and day. And then I look at those younger kids that were parented by a different, I guess, less aware version of me, and they've probably got a bit more baggage or trauma than the kids that are getting parented by, I guess, a more evolved version of myself.
Yeah, you're right. And I was dealing with another layer because their mum took off about 5 years ago, about 6 years ago. Their mum took off, and I took two, and then took the older two, and there was another two that went with their dad, and it really hit them hard. Like, it really did. So I was trying to manage them, and I was getting divorced at the same time. It was very just messy everywhere. So, like, it didn't fit. I just kept swinging. Like, you know, I'm a pretty open sort of guy with them. Like, I'm always saying I love you. Like, I'm always like, I love you, mate. You're just the greatest. Like, even though it was a very bad time, it was all over the place. I think what they saw was me step up, even though I wasn't really emotionally great before when I was younger, when I was trying to build a business and running, and I was like just working all the time, and I wasn't tuned in. But I think what they saw is me step up more, and I could say through that turmoil, our relationship is fantastic now. But I didn't waver from the commitment of, I need to be the pack leader. I need to be, I need them to look at me as a beacon of light, even though I was actually dying inside.
Yeah. Well, I think it's taking that, self-accountability, right? And being there, in for a penny, in for a pound. I think as a parent, it's not so much about how you're feeling, it's about how they're feeling. And even if you're having a crap day, you still got to be there and hold down the fort, especially through times like that. You talked just then about, obviously, when early on trying to juggle growing your business, being a parent and all that. Like, what advice would you give out there? Because, I know you still work as hard, if not harder, than you did 10, 15, 20 years ago. What are you doing differently now to kind of juggle, the commercial success, the business success that you have, but then also still be there every day? Because I obviously see it on your social as well. You've started this kind of a workout challenge with your daughter. You've got her in there every day. Like, how are you juggling all that?
I think these days, I have a good team with me. So that's taken a long time to find great people who, and Jordan will end up taking over everything at some point. And I've got Ash and a couple other people. So one, I've had to be the person that's attracted great people. So that's the first thing. And without that, I wouldn't have the time leverage that I do. But also, I'm not afraid to say no to things these days.
Yeah.
Because I'm not saying just say no because I've got to go, I'm not willy-nilly just saying no to things, but I used to have a lot of fear and anxiety around people not liking me. If I couldn't take care of them. Now I'm just brutally honest. Like I'm like, I'd rather feel stable, and there's nothing worse than going somewhere you just don't want to go.
Oh yeah.
And so let's say the kids let's say there was a Phoenix, my third kid plays for East, and I haven't watched a lot of his games growing up. And I said to him, I'd really like to watch your games. So if it's on at 3:00 on a Saturday with a bit of notice, I'd rather lose a bit of business than miss an important game. Whereas before, I would have chose the business over that.
Been there.
Yeah, that's right. And I feel all right with it though. So I've got, before I'd be like, at the appointment really thinking I'd really want to be there or vice versa. Now I'm like, I really value, it's a bit like that Netflix thing. I value time greatly these days. So much. And I think it's actually made a better version of me. I just got a go ahead on a property just now. The lady said, I'd really be honoured if you look after my home. And just before I got onto this, and she said, Matt, when you were in my home, she must be in psychology or something. She said, your recall something, your eyes did not move from me when I was speaking. Even when you were talking about things, she said, your eyes didn't dart here or there. You were completely present with me. She said, Matt, I want you to sell my house. I didn't show her any charts. I didn't show her any stats. I didn't show her anything. Nothing. I just sat in a lounge room and connected with her and talked about what was really important to her, how she felt, blah, blah, blah. And I think the reason I'm there now is maybe a lot more evolved from where I was, but I feel like I'm just more real now. I'm just...
Definitely. It comes back to that authenticity. I think, authenticity, especially when it comes to sales. And actually, for those that are in the real estate sector in particular, how much in real estate sales have you actually done over your career now?
Oh, I think in fees last year, what did we write, 8 million or 7 million? 7.7 million in fees Jordan and I wrote last year.
Wow.
And Trev.
And what does that work out in terms of total volume of sales per annum?
I don't know.
We did 224
224 sales.
Yeah. So about, is a couple hundred million?
I don't know, Dane.
No, the reason why I'm asking is obviously
500 million.
Yeah, wow. So 500 million in residential sales or, real estate sales in 1 year. So, like, looking at that, like, would you attribute that authenticity that you just kind of explained in that situation as kind of one of your key secret kind of, not secret, but one of the ways that you've been able to be so successful at actually selling?
I think so. I think if you look back across my career, I was so anxious before. I'd go into houses that had sweaty hands, and I was just like running on adrenaline and not frantic. People wouldn't have known, but inside I'm like, and like thinking about all these appointments and this and that and whatever else. But like I just realised it's sort of, if you just stay on your path and just, you still got to work really hard. Like I work hard. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm always on. I'm always doing stuff, whatever. But I had this fear, I don't know, it's just like this imaginary fear around, I don't know, like, it's a bit like this. If someone wants me to go to a party, I'm happy to say no now. Look at them in the face and say, thanks, but I just don't go to parties. So I appreciate it, and maybe we'll catch up somewhere else at a different time. Whereas before I would have went to the party, stood in the corner and every minute of it.
It sounds like, and I've gone through a similar thing, at least on my end. For me, it's been more about kind of, I'm not